My daughter killed me, not with a gun, not with poison, but with a pen. She went to court, filed the papers, and declared me legally dead, while I was still sitting in my own living room. Why? To steal every last dollar, every inch of property, everything I worked my entire life for. My name is Henry Davis. I'm 72 years old, retired, and after my wife passed away a few years back, life slowed down. My house isn't big or flashy, but it's mine. I worked 30 years in the steel mill for it. Every crack in the driveway, every scratch on the banister, I earned with sweat and long nights. My daughter Emily is my only child. Smart, ambitious, the kind of girl who used to sit on my shoulders when she was little and shout, "Higher, Daddy, higher!" She was my pride, my reason to keep going after her mother died. So when she visited on weekends, I always made her favorite, blueberry pancakes. We'd sit at the same kitchen table, laughing, remembering old times. I never once thought she could hurt me. Never once thought blood could betray blood. But looking back now, maybe the signs were already there. It started small. One Sunday, after we finished pancakes, Emily leaned back in her chair and tapped her spoon against the plate. "Dad," she said casually, "have you ever thought about, what'll happen with the house? With your savings? Eventually?" I laughed it off. "Eventually? Emily, I'm not planning on going anywhere anytime soon." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Of course, Dad. I just mean, it would be smart to have everything in order. You wouldn't want lawyers taking it all, right?" I nodded slowly. "I already took care of all that years ago. Everything's written down fair and square. You don't have to worry." But she pressed a little more. "Well, maybe we could update things. I could help, Make sure it's smooth." Her voice was sweet, but something in the way she said smooth made the hairs on my arms stand up. At the time, I brushed it off as her being responsible, maybe even protective. But over the weeks, the questions kept coming. "Dad, how much do you get from your pension again? Do you still have life insurance? Is the car in your name or joint with Mom's old paperwork?" Each question felt innocent on the surface, but they stacked up like bricks, forming a wall I didn't want to see. Looking back now, those weren't questions of care. They were questions of calculation. Not long after those questions started, something changed. Emily stopped visiting as often. She used to swing by every Sunday without fail, but now, weeks went by with nothing more than a short text. When I called, she picked up, but her voice sounded rushed, distracted. "Hey, Dad, I'm busy. Can I call you later?" Later never came. At first, I told myself it was normal. She had her own life, her own job, her own responsibilities. Kids grow up, they get busy. That's what everyone says, right? But there was something different in her tone. Not just distance, detachment. Like I wasn't her father anymore, just an obligation she was trying to cross off her list. One evening, I left her a voicemail. "Hey, sweetheart, haven't seen you in a while. I miss our pancakes. Call me when you can, all right?" She didn't call back. The silence in the house grew heavier with each day. The clock ticked louder. The rooms felt emptier. I told myself not to worry, that I was just being sensitive. But deep down, a voice whispered something I didn't want to admit. Emily wasn't pulling away because she was busy. She was pulling away because she was planning something. It was a Tuesday morning when the letter came. Just like any other day, I shuffled to the front door, bent down, and grabbed the small stack of mail. Usually it was bills, ads, or magazines I didn't remember subscribing to. But one envelope stood out. Thick paper, stamped with an official seal, my name printed in bold. I carried it to the kitchen table, poured myself a coffee, and carefully tore it open. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake. The letter said my pension account had been closed. Not paused, not frozen, closed. My heart sank. I picked up the phone, dialed the number at the bottom of the page, and after a few minutes on hold, a clerk came on the line. "Yes, sir, according to our records, Your account was terminated upon your passing. I nearly dropped the phone. My what? Your death certificate was filed, sir. I'm very sorry for your loss. I sat there, stunned, gripping the edge of the table. But I'm not dead, I shouted into the receiver. The clerk hesitated, clearly confused. Sir, according to the official record, Henry Davis passed away 2 weeks ago. The line blurred as my ears rang. My hands shook so badly I almost spilled the coffee. Somewhere out there, someone had declared me dead, and deep down, I already knew who it was. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with that letter in front of me, reading it over and over, as if the words might somehow change. By morning, I had made up my mind. I drove straight to the county records office, the place where births, marriages, and deaths all lived in neat little folders. The clerk behind the counter gave me a polite smile. How can I help you today, sir? I swallowed hard. I need a copy of my death certificate. The woman blinked, confused. Your death certificate? Yes, I said firmly, leaning closer. My name is Henry Davis, and apparently, according to the state of Ohio, I'm dead. Her smile faltered. She typed my name into the computer, her fingers pausing as the record appeared. Then she looked up at me, eyes wide. Yes, sir, it's here. Date of death, 2 weeks ago. Cause, natural causes at home. I gripped the counter. Who filed it? She hesitated, then turned the screen toward me. And there it was, clear as day, filed by next of kin, Emily Davis, daughter. The room seemed to tilt. My knees went weak, and for a moment I thought I might collapse right there in front of everyone. My daughter, my only child, had erased me with the stroke of a pen. I left the office in a daze, clutching a copy of the false certificate. Outside, the world kept moving, cars honking, kids laughing on the sidewalk. But to me, everything was silent. Emily hadn't just betrayed me, she had buried me alive. I sat in my car outside the records office for nearly an hour, holding that paper in my hands. Emily's name glared up at me in black ink. Next of kin. I thought back to when she was little, how she used to curl up on my lap and beg me for one more bedtime story, how she clung to my hand on her first day of school, whispering, "Don't let go, Daddy." And now? She had let go of me. Worse, she had erased me. I stared at the paper, my chest tightening, my breathing shallow. How could she? How could the girl I raised, the girl I sacrificed everything for, sit in some office and sign my death away like it was nothing? I imagined her standing there filing those papers. Did she smile when she did it? Did her hands shake? Or was it easy? Too easy. By the time I drove home, my body felt heavy, like I was carrying the weight of my own coffin. I walked through the front door and sat in the living room. The same living room where she had once built blanket forts and laughed so hard she got the hiccups. Now the silence mocked me. For the first time in my life, I felt something worse than grief. Grief is what you feel when you lose someone you love. This was different. This was betrayal. And betrayal, it cut deeper than any grave. That night I didn't eat. I didn't turn on the TV. I just sat in Linda's old rocking chair, staring at the shadows stretching across the floor. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. At first I thought it was from age, but no, it was rage. A rage so deep it sat in my chest like burning coal. I thought about calling Emily right then, thought about shouting, demanding answers, making her hear the sound of the father she had buried alive. But then I stopped, because shouting wouldn't fix this. Anger wouldn't undo what she'd done. If I confronted her now, she'd spin another lie, maybe cover her tracks, maybe even find a way to finish what she started. Number. If she thought I was gone, then that's exactly what I'd let her believe. I whispered to myself, let her think she won. Let her think I'm weak. That'll make the fall even harder. The anger inside me wasn't wild and explosive anymore. It was quiet, controlled. The kind of anger that waits. So I folded the false death certificate, slid it into a drawer, and sat back in that creaking chair. Emily thought she had written the final chapter of my story. But I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. The next morning, I woke up with my mind made up. I put the forged death certificate into a folder, tucked it under my arm, and drove downtown. My heart pounded the whole way. Every red light felt like it was mocking me, asking if I really had the courage to see this through. Angela's office sat on the corner of Main Street, small, neat, and steady, much like the woman herself. She'd helped me with estate paperwork after Linda passed, and I trusted her. When I walked in, the receptionist gave me a warm smile. "Good morning, Mr. Davis. Angela will be right with you." A few minutes later, Angela stepped out, shaking my hand firmly. "Mr. Davis, it's good to see you. What brings you in today?" I followed her into the office, sat down, and slid the folder across her desk. My throat was dry, my voice rough. "I need you to look at this. Tell me I'm not crazy." She adjusted her glasses, opened the folder, and scanned the document. At first her face was calm, but slowly her brow furrowed. She flipped the page, then looked back at me, her eyes sharp. "Mr. Davis," she said carefully, "according to this document, you're dead." I let out a bitter laugh. "So it seems." She leaned forward. "Where did you get this?" "County records," I said. My voice cracked, but I steadied it. "Filed 2 weeks ago, by my daughter." For a long moment, Angela just stared at me, stunned. Then she shook her head. "This isn't just wrong. This is fraud. And fraud at this level? It's criminal." Her words hit me like a hammer. Fraud. Criminal. Finally, I wasn't the only one who saw the truth. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt the weight on my shoulders lift. Just a little. I wasn't alone anymore. While Angela and I quietly prepared, Emily was busy celebrating. Neighbors started dropping hints when they saw me out front. Mrs. Collins from next door leaned over the fence one morning, lowering her voice. "Emily told me she's handling all your affairs now, Henry. Must be a relief to have such a responsible daughter." I forced a smile, nodding, but inside my stomach churned. Responsible? No. She was cashing in on my coffin. It didn't stop there. Word spread around town that Emily had come into money. She traded her old sedan for a brand-new SUV, shiny and red. She showed up at the salon, flashing a platinum credit card, and one afternoon I overheard her at the cafe, laughing with a friend. "It's so much easier when you don't have to wait for inheritance," she joked. "Dad always said he wanted me taken care of. Well, now I am." Her friend giggled, and Emily sipped her latte like she hadn't just spat on my grave. Everywhere I turned, she was spending, bragging, showing off. And with every careless word, every new purchase, she built a higher stack of evidence against herself. Angela told me over the phone, "This is exactly what we need. Let her go deeper. Let her think she's untouchable. The more she spends, the harder she'll fall." So I kept my silence. I smiled politely when neighbors brought up how lucky I was to have such a caring daughter. And at night, when I sat alone at the kitchen table, I whispered to myself, "Keep going, Emily. Keep digging. When the fall comes, it'll be from so high. You won't see it coming." By now, Emily thought she had it all. My accounts, my property, even my name buried under official paperwork. But while she bragged and spent, Angela and I were quietly laying the groundwork. Every week I drove downtown with another folder of documents. Old bank records, notarized copies of my signature, even family photos with dates written on the back. Proof that I was alive, proof that Emily's story was nothing but lies. Angela studied everything with sharp eyes. Her desk was soon stacked with neat piles of evidence, every detail sorted and ready. One afternoon she looked up at me, her voice calm but certain. "Mr. Davis, She's scheduled to appear in probate court next month. She's going to request the release of your estate." My chest tightened. "And that's when we stop her?" Angela nodded. "That's when we walk in. You'll be there in person, alive and well, and I'll present the evidence. The judge won't just deny her request. She'll be facing criminal charges for fraud, forgery, and theft." I sat back in the chair, my heart pounding. The thought of walking into that courtroom, of seeing Emily's face when she realized the man she declared dead was standing right in front of her, it almost made me smile. But then the weight of it all came crashing back. She wasn't just some con artist on the street. She was my daughter. I rubbed my hands together, whispering more to myself than to Angela. I never thought I'd see the day I'd have to fight my own flesh and blood in court. Angela leaned forward, her tone softer now. "She made that choice, Mr. Davis. All you're doing is making it right." I nodded slowly. The plan was set. The date was marked. And Emily had no idea the ghost she buried was about to walk back into her life. The morning of the hearing, I woke up before the alarm. My hands shook as I buttoned my shirt, but it wasn't weakness this time. It was adrenaline. I looked around the house, my house, taking in every detail, the faded photos on the mantel, the dent in the banister from when Emily was little and tried to ride her tricycle inside. This place held my life, and today would decide if I kept it or lost it forever. When I arrived at the courthouse, Angela was already waiting on the steps. She gave me a small nod, her expression calm, but her eyes sharp. "Ready?" she asked. I swallowed hard, forcing a breath. "As I'll ever be." Inside, the courtroom was cold and formal. Wooden benches, polished floors, the American flag standing tall behind the judge's bench. I sat quietly in the back as people filed in, my heart thudding in my chest. Then she walked in. Emily, dressed in a sleek black suit, hair pinned back neatly, carrying a leather folder like she'd been preparing for this day her whole life. She didn't even glance toward the back of the room where I sat. Why would she? In her mind, I didn't exist anymore. I watched her greet her attorney with a smile, watched her take her seat at the front, calm and confident. She looked so sure of herself, so certain that the world was about to hand her everything she wanted. The judge entered, and everyone stood. Emily straightened her shoulders, ready to claim her prize, and I sat there in silence, waiting for the moment when her perfect little plan would explode. Because Emily didn't know it yet. But the dead man she buried was sitting just a few feet away, ready to stand up and take back his life. The judge adjusted her glasses, glanced down at the paperwork, and began speaking in a steady voice. "Today we are reviewing the estate of Henry Davis, deceased, as filed by his daughter, Emily Davis." The words stung. Deceased. Hearing it spoken out loud like I wasn't sitting just a few feet away made my stomach twist. Emily rose from her chair with practiced grace. Her voice was calm, steady, almost sweet. "Yes, Your Honor. As his only child and next of kin, I'm here to finalize the release of my father's estate into my care." She sat back down, folding her hands neatly, her lips curling into a faint smile. She thought she had already won. That's when Angela stood. "Your Honor, before proceeding, I believe the court should hear directly from Mr. Henry Davis." The room went silent. The judge frowned. "Excuse me, counselor? Did you say Mr. Henry Davis?" Angela nodded, and slowly, deliberately, I rose from the back bench. The sound of the wooden floor creaking under my shoes filled the air as I walked forward. Each step felt heavier than the last, but my head was high, my shoulders steady. Emily turned at the sound, and when her eyes met mine, her face drained of color. She froze, mouth open, the blood rushing from her cheeks until she was pale as stone. For a moment, she didn't even breathe. I stopped beside Angela, my voice clear, strong. "Your Honor, as you can see, I am very much alive." Gasps rippled across the courtroom. Emily's lawyer dropped his pen. The judge's eyebrows shot up. "And Emily?" She shook her head violently, stammering, "No, no, this can't be. You're dead. I filed the papers. You're dead." Her words cracked through the silence, desperate, panicked. I looked straight at her, my heart heavy but firm. "You buried me on paper, Emily. But you forgot something. Dead men don't walk into courtrooms." The judge's gavel cracked against the bench, demanding order in the room. "Settle down! Everyone, settle down!" I took my seat beside Angela, while Emily sat frozen in hers, her hands gripping the table so tight her knuckles turned white. Angela rose calmly, her voice firm and clear. "Your Honor, this case is not about a grieving daughter seeking closure. This is about fraud, deliberate, calculated fraud." She laid out the folder of evidence on the table, opening each page for the court to see. "Here is the death certificate, filed by Emily Davis. Yet, as we can all plainly see, Mr. Davis is alive and well. Here is proof of his active bank withdrawals dated after the so-called date of death. And here," she slid another paper forward, "is his authentic signature compared to the forged one on the documents filed by his daughter." The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing at the clear differences on the page. The courtroom murmured in shock. Emily's lawyer scrambled to object, but the judge silenced him with a glare. "Sit down, counselor. I want to hear this." Angela pressed on. "Emily Davis attempted to claim her father's assets by declaring him dead while he still lived. She closed his pension accounts, attempted to seize his home, and represented herself as sole heir to his estate. This is not only immoral, it is criminal." Emily finally snapped, her voice shrill, desperate. "That's not true. I thought he was gone. I swear. He was old. He wasn't answering my calls." "Enough." The judge's voice cut like a blade. "You don't file a death certificate because someone misses a phone call, Ms. Davis. This is fraud, plain and simple." I sat there in silence, my heart pounding, watching as my daughter's carefully built lie unraveled piece by piece. Her face crumbled. The smugness, the arrogance, all of it drained away. And in that moment, for the first time since she buried me alive on paper, Emily finally realized her game was over. The judge leaned back in her chair, her face stern, her voice steady. "This court has heard enough. The evidence is clear. Mr. Henry Davis is alive, and this so-called case is nothing more than a sham built on lies and forgery." She turned her sharp gaze toward Emily. "Ms. Davis, you not only attempted to defraud this court, but you falsified legal documents and declared your living father dead. These are serious crimes. You will be reported for criminal investigation immediately." The gavel struck the bench with a deafening crack. "Case dismissed! Assets remain in Mr. Davis's name." Gasps rippled through the courtroom again, followed by silence so heavy you could hear the hum of the ceiling fan. Emily's lawyer dropped his head into his hands. Security moved closer, waiting for the judge's signal. Emily, pale and trembling, turned to me. Her voice was barely a whisper, cracking under the weight of desperation. "Dad, please. You don't understand. I just wanted security. I didn't mean—" I stared at her, my heart heavy. This was my daughter. The little girl who once begged me to push her higher on the swing, who once held my hand so tightly crossing the street. But the girl I raised was gone. What sat before me was a stranger, one who had tried to bury me alive for money. I didn't answer her. I couldn't. My silence was louder than any words I could have spoken. The bailiff stepped forward. "Ms. Davis, you'll need to come with us." As they led her away, Emily looked back at me one last time. Her eyes were filled with panic, regret, maybe even shame. But I didn't move. Because no matter how much it hurt, I knew one thing for certain. She had made her choice. And now, she had to live with the consequences. The courtroom emptied, leaving only echoes of footsteps and the faint creak of wooden benches. I walked outside into the crisp afternoon air, the sunlight warm against my face. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. The house was still mine. My name, my life. They were mine again. Emily hadn't taken them. But as I stood on those courthouse steps, the victory didn't feel sweet. It felt heavy. Because in winning back my life, I had lost my daughter. That night, I sat on the porch of my home, the one Linda and I built together. The roses she planted swayed in the evening breeze, and I could almost hear her voice telling me to water them, just like always. I kept my promise, Linda. I kept the house safe. I thought of Emily, locked away in a cell or sitting in some cold room waiting to be questioned. A part of me still ached for her, still wished she had chosen differently. But I couldn't save her from herself. She declared me dead to steal everything I worked for. She buried me alive on paper. But the thing about trying to bury someone alive is they can still claw their way back. And when I walked into that courtroom, I didn't just take back my house, my name, my life. I proved that I was stronger than her betrayal. She lost me the moment she signed that paper. And me? I may have lost a daughter that day, but I kept my dignity, I kept my promise, and most of all, I kept my life.